Welcome back to the breakdown of CPS. This is part 5, the gray layer. Because of time constraints, this video is a mesh up of the gray layer as promised and my only concerns with all the really new great bills that are flying around. I was born into foster care over 40 years ago and I aged out straight into the streets just before I turned 17. That was about 26 years ago. And I say that to say this. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer and nothing I say is meant to be advice. What this is, let's just say it's my own opinion based on my own lived experiences and the research that I do on highly reputable, mostly government websites and real life books whenever possible. Quick recap. We walked straight into the lobby of CPS demanding some answers. What we found was nobody actually knew what was really going on. The caseworkers and their supervisors, all they knew how to do was turn on their tablets and iPads, click through some drop-down menus and risk dashboards. But since the answers that we need weren't coded into their software, they didn't even know what we were talking about. Down here on the ground floor, the caseworkers, the ones showing up at your door, they're paid about $40,000 to $55,000 a year in most states. Investigators, a little more. The supervisors, maybe $65,000 to $75,000 if they've been around. And that's who you see. That's who we thought the system was. We went a little deeper and we walked into the back rooms where the people responsible for the coding decision tree logic sit. That's the architects of the risk dashboards that the workers click on. Their paychecks, $90,000 to $120,000 for mid-level analysts, $150,000 to $200,000 for senior architects. Still, we didn't find what we were looking for, so we cracked open their operating systems and smashed into their hard drives. This is where we found billing tied to government triggers. We went a little deeper into the boardrooms where the programs are approved. Here, the executive, directors, and consultants are pulling anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000 with $1 million bonus sign-on packages. The CEO of the foundation steering these waivers, he makes over $1.2 million a year. Their chief investment officer clears nearly $1.9 million. Even the nonprofit research heads in the data shops are making $400,000 plus. Then we went to the state level. We found statewide reimbursements and discovered that they're not voting on family matters at all. They're voting on reimbursement triggers and how fast removal becomes a claim, how a placement triggers federal dollars, and how the termination of rights locks in subsidy. Lawmakers are making $70,000 to $90,000 a year while authorizing the contracts that will make them consultants at $300,000 to $500,000 a year as soon as they leave office. Judges at $180,000 on the bench retire into vendor boards making $300,000 to $400,000 a year. We still didn't find what we were looking for, but we found what they've been hiding. So we followed the money. Now we're standing in the gray layer. I don't even know exactly where we are. We're somewhere in cyberspace where money looks like ones and zeros, people look like ones and zeros, and family looks like dollar signs as long as they can be separated and billed individually. From here, we have the back-end view of almost everything involved, from the state and federal politics to the coder logic and the whys. Oh look, reform! Let's get some shit straight about everyone's favorite word, reform. And this time, let's peel it all the way back. They tell you, this time is different. They hold a press conference and they put their signatures on the bill. They tell the public, families will be safer now, but the mechanism is always built into the design. The sunset clause, the pilot waiver, the temporary demonstration. They write the law to expire. They draft it vague enough for vendors to bend it. And now in 2025, it's even worse. The vendors are running AI compliance engines that simulate the new law before it even takes effect. The system already knows how to look compliant while changing nothing. This isn't a courtroom problem. This isn't a caseworker problem. This is system architecture. And when a statute says reasonable efforts, AI models convert that phrase into compliance checklists, reroute removals, and generate a dashboard that says improvement while separation rates stay the same. Look it up. That's predictive coding. That's revenue protection. That's how you neutralize reform before a parent even knows that the law is supposed to have changed. And none of it stops the separation. And if you think it's about the services, it's not. It's about throughput. A hotline call becomes a risk object. The object feeds the schema. The schema feeds analytics. Analytics feeds contract deliverables. The contract spits out units of service, units of billing, and the revenue loops back into performance dashboards. The dashboard is pitched to legislators as proof of child safety. And what's missing? The family. Because the family is the raw material, not the outcome. This isn't new. I'm 40-something, and they made money off of my life as a foster kid in the 80s and 90s. They've been doing this since foster care was privatized. First proof of money making was when the states wrote contracts that paid providers per child per day. And that wasn't an accident. That was the prototype. From there, it grew into waivers, pilots, dashboards, and today's predictive models. At least 40 years of turning families into ledger lines. And now let's talk about the insiders, not the names that everyone's parroting, but the longest seated power brokers. At the foundation side, executives pulling more than any public official ever did. The chief investment officer clears nearly 1.9 million managing endowments off the same foster care industry that they steer. Their EVP of system improvement sits steady at 580,000 plus. And these aren't government watchdogs, these are industry bosses. And on the research side, the long-seated director earns over $430,000 annually, while senior fellows and program heads pull in $300,000 plus. Even the mid-tier staff average 6 figures. That's not neutral evaluation. That's a stable, profitable career path built on improving a system that has never actually been dismantled. And remember, the revolving door is constant. Rafael Lopez left the Children's Bureau at $180,000 a year, then re-emerged as a cincher making $500,000 a year. Molly, she shifted from a city child welfare seat at $120,000 to a cincher's industry lead at triple that. Judges retire on $180K, then reappear on vendor boards pulling $300,000 to $400,000. And the CEO of one of the biggest vendors pulls 8 figures a year while writing contracts for the same agency as judges are ruling for. That's not reform, that's reward ladder. So what do you get when you win a bill? You get a sunset clause waiting to dissolve it. You get a waiver rerouting it. You get compliance dashboards making it look fixed while removals roll on. And you get the same judges, directors, and lawmakers who voted for it moving into vendor roles as soon as their term is up. The bill is bait, and the industry is the hook. Psychologically, this is the coolest part. They dangle reform to induce false hope conditioning. They want families and advocates to cycle their energy into the next promise, the next reset, the next Child Safety Act. That is system-wide intermittent reinforcement. Keep the target engaged with just enough illusion of change to suppress rebellion. Learned helplessness at scale. They've already written scripts to navigate your bill. Natural language processing models parse statutes in real time. Predictive dashboards auto-generate reasonable effort reports, and AI compliance packages are sold directly to agencies. Stay ahead of reform. Keep your funding secure. The tech is literally sold as a shield against accountability. And in CPS language, it's all the same. Permanency, best interest, safety threshold, words turned into fields, fields turned into claims, claims turned into revenue, and none of these words mean family. They mean metric. So I'll say this without filter. These bills don't stop separation. They reroute it. They rename it. They hide it under pilot projects, sunsets, dashboards, and compliance AI. The removals never stop because the removals are the industry. And don't come at me with more accountability as a solution. I'm all for it, but don't pretend it's a victory. Oversight committees, audits, inspector generals, all circus rings inside their buildings. And those buildings don't exist to serve me. They exist to process me. And I'm not a politician. I'm not an academic. I'm a regular guy who has to work 50 plus hours a week and then spend the rest of my time fighting just to survive. I don't lick boots and I don't wait for crumbs. My rights didn't come from a clause. My rights started where God put me, with my family. And I don't ask for permission. I just demand that they stop profiting off our children. This was the gray layer, and it's not the top. The next layer, it owns the entire stack. The data firms, the insurance underwriters, the adoption platforms, the AI social risk scores that decide your future before you even knew you were flagged. That's where we're heading next. So am I against fighting in their courts? No. But I also know that the game is rigged with way too many variables for me to gamble. And I will support your bills 100%, as I have the hundreds of others across the US over my lifetime. And I've just been patiently waiting, I guess, for the right one.